Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. LDS history is replete with scholars who have gotten in trouble with church authorities. People like Michael Quinn, Lester Bush, and even Maxine Hanks, to name just a few. In the next conversation with Drs. Richard and Claudia Bushman, I asked them why some people get in trouble and others don't, like them, who write about sensitive church history topics. You'll love to hear the answers to their questions. Check out our conversation. So I have a question for both of you, especially because you know Leonard Arrington and you know Eugene England. I look at people like Nelson Lowry. I don't know if you knew him, from Utah State. Even Lester Bush. It seems like certain people get in trouble for, Michael Quinn's another one, get in trouble for writing certain things, but there's other people like you two, Greg Prince, Terrell Givens, people like that can write very similar things, but you don't get in trouble. Can you talk about why some people get in trouble, some people don't? Do you toe the line better than, Michael Quinn? Or how does that work? Or is it just luck of the draw? Or how does that work when you talk about sensitive issues with the church?
Well, it's a good question. My slogan is keep your heart pure and let your mind run free. That is, if you can purge out any desire to tweak the church, to sort of correct the church, and just desire to really say what you believe is true. And that's hard to do. A lot of people think they're doing that, but you can always sense in their writings a desire to trouble people. I wouldn't say that's true for everyone who gets in trouble, but I'm just saying you have to have a good attitude. And then in my case, of course, I was taking all the church jobs that came along. So the fact that I was a bishop and a stake president and now I'm a patriarch, sort of reassures people that my heart is in the right place. Because I think that's what the church leaders are most interested in. Are you really loyal to the church? And that's a hard thing to judge. And probably people are misjudged on that count. But that's what I have to say on that subject.
Does it help that you didn't live in Utah? Did you have a little bit of a buffer because you were in Boston and New York?
Yeah, it helps a lot. The trouble is, if you live in Utah, you write aware of general authorities looking over your shoulder. And you can't do that. You can't write to please the general authorities. You got to write what you think is true. And it's just very hard to do in Utah because there's such a presence. You say you're writing a book or doing this or doing that, and they always want to know, what do the brethren think? And if you just get that in your head all the time, it's very hard to think clearly. So, I've done most of my writing in Boston and New York, and it's been much easier. And also, when I write, I don't write just for the church. I always write for people outside the church. I always want to talk in a way that I often imagine myself giving a talk to the faculty at Columbia, and what could I say about the church? Say it in a way that would make sense to them. So it helps that way too, to be in another society where you're aware of other demands.
So because you're in Boston and New York, do you think that the brethren give you a little bit of a pass on stuff that other people might get in trouble for? Like Leonard Arrington and Michael Quinn, who were right, in Salt Lake at BYU.
Yeah, Lester Bush was in Washington. I don't know how much trouble he got into. Did Lester Bush get kicked out of the church? I'm not aware of that.
He didn't, but I think they made his life very hard. That's what I've heard. He never got kicked out, but they made it known to him that his views were not welcome.
Okay, I don't know anything about that. But I don't know. It could make a difference, possibly.
Claudia, do you have any thoughts there?
Well, I think I'll do anything if they tell me straight out that I'm not supposed to do something. I won't do it, and that's happened a few. But I don't think that I have never been in the business of criticizing. I don't want to try and reform it. I don't threaten to leave if they don't do something right. Because, and that doesn't mean I agree with everything that goes on, but I just think there's no point in fighting authority in that. So I just do that. But I know there are a lot of people that do listen to things I say into. But on the other hand, I've done an awful lot of things for the church too. Lots of my projects are very devoted and so. And I have no desire to change, but not everybody change it.
I think Lavina Anderson felt the same way, but they kicked her out anyway.
I feel very sorry to see people feel that they must and so on. Church are unfortunate in every way. I think we can live with it. I mean, also, I feel like I have a great deal of power in the church. The priesthood with it. But not a lot of things I say make a difference to the local people as well as I don't feel bad about this position.
Claudia's view is if you're discontent with your position in the church, ask yourself, what would you like to do in church? And when you figure that out, then just do it.
Yeah, do it anyway. Do it. And so, I do a lot of that.
I know, Richard, one time you said, because I think I met you at a parade in Provo when you were living here in Utah for a short time. I know you're back in New York now, and I'm trying to remember how you put it. It seems like you said, and please correct me here, that in Boston and New York, your church meetings, you had lots of questions, and in Utah they have all the answers.
That's right.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. That's what I've said about high priest meeting.
Can you expound on that a little bit more?
Well, in New York, we get a lot of talks of people who are struggling. They confess their problems and they're in trouble getting along, but that they're doing their best and they appreciate their brothers and sisters, want to be part of things. And that's fine. You don't have to have a solid testimony in order to be an active and valuable member. I think that's getting to be more and more true in Utah. But there are a lot of people who just think the way you demonstrate your complete loyalty to the church is to say with unshaken words that the church is true. You have to be absolutely certain. And, what does faith mean? It means trusting in things where there are difficulties. So it's just easier to be a member of the church in New York.
Ken Burns just gave an interview, I just saw it about a week ago, and one of the things he said, which just really struck me, and I'd love to have you comment on this, is he said, a lot of people think the opposite of faith is doubt. He says, that's not true. The opposite of faith is certainty. And when you're certain, then you're not exercising faith. And, the thought came to my mind was, when we go to testimony meeting, I know Joseph Smith's a prophet. I know the church is true. I know. And that's not faith. That's certainty. And can you comment on that? Do you agree with Ken Burns on that point?
Yeah, I kind of feel that way. Mark Rathwall has written a wonderful exposition of Alma 32 in a little book he's written about the parts of the Book of Mormon. And that's what he says. When you plant the seed, you never arrive at perfect faith, never perfect certainty, but your faith grows stronger because the plant keeps growing as you nurture it. And it seems to me that's a better description of life than this arrival at a point where you can never be shaken under any circumstances.
Besides, what is the church? What are we talking about? What is truth? What are we talking about? Neither one is at all clear.
Well, another question I had is I'd like you to address, I guess, there's two types of critics. I guess the first one I want to address are kind of the academic critics. I know I spoke with Dr. Larry Foster, and a lot of people compare Rough Stone Rolling to Fawn Brody's No Man Knows My History. Do you think you've been able to be equal with Fawn, or to surpass it, or and also some people say, well, Richard didn't go enough into polygamy and polyandry and those kind of some sticky things. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I'll tell you an anecdote. I have the same publisher as Fawn Brody, Alfred Knopf.
Okay.
My book was published on the 60th anniversary of the publication of No Man Knows My History. So I told my editor, if you publish my book, it'll give you a chance to repent of your past sins. And the editor also told me that the sales of No Man History rose after my book came out. Hear the other side of things. So tell me your question again. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, so can you address the No Man Knows My History, whether you've equaled or surpassed that?
Well, people who read Rough Stone Rolling, they may say it's a good piece of scholarly work, but it's definitely pro Joseph Smith. Fawn Brody wrote a book that Mormons feel is anti-Joseph Smith. I think they're wrong in one sense. It was probably as favorable a view of Joseph Smith as been published outside of Mormon circles up to that point, and really strikes outsiders as a fairly balanced approach. We, of course, don't see it that way. She was a marvelous writer. I think she was a better writer than she was a scholar, because she does not address the central question of Joseph Smith's life, and that is his religion. So she sort of explains it away. She makes him an adventurer. She, does not attribute any sincere or deep religious feelings to it, which I think is wrong. There's a lot of it, both in his revelations and in his personal letters. So I think it will always stand as an example of attitude at a certain point of time, and is a wonderful piece of journalism. And my book doesn't begin to match it. Someone told me in my book, he says, a person outside the church making a critical comment said, you give both sides, both points of view on controversial issues, but you always have the positive one speak last. So the good guys get the last word. But I don't worry about that. It will soon be displaced. John Turner's writing a biography of Joseph Smith. So is Rick Turley. And Rick Turley is writing another one. So it will be displaced in time. But it represented the best I think I could do at that moment, speaking both as a scholar and as a church person. I feel like I spoke the truth, truly the truth as I understand it. I didn't run away from any problems. I could have done a much better job on Joseph's wives. I didn't do justice to them. I feel bad about that. But, I talked about him marrying married women. By no means I intend to cover up any problem I wanted to deal with everything.
Very good. Claudia, do you have any critics that you would like to address in any of your writings?
Critics?
Yeah. What have critics said about you, and would you like to address anything that they've addressed?
Critics that have criticized my writing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. Has anybody ever criticized my writing?
Certainly not.
I can't think anything offhand. Have you got anything to mention?
No, I just remember. Say that again?
I only remember the good things.
That's a good way to be.
It always surprises me that people like things I write. I'm always surprised. But
Pleasantly surprised. Nice.
too, some of my things get some real attention occasionally. I'm very fortunate. Although I can't think of any criticisms where people are critical of the things I do rather than things I say. Wouldn't you say, Richard?
Well, the things you say in Sunday school class, that's...
Well, I think there should be more said in Sunday school.
Yeah.
It is true I was criticizing the Bible.
I wish that I could sit in your Sunday school class. That would be a treat.
But, we believe in free speech.
Well, one other thing I wanted to address, Richard, was this. I know there have been some critics that have kind of, to me, have used your words out of context. I know there's a famous quote of you where you've said, well, the church history narrative needs to change. Do you feel like some critics have misused your words as kind of a way to whip the church?
Yes, I think I've been mistreated in that way. I was in a fireside. It was at the home of one of Eugene England's sons, and they were asking questions, and I made the comment that something about the narrative, the early church history narrative, is false and has to be changed. And as I said the words, I knew I didn't mean false. I meant that there were errors that had to be corrected, not false. And various people, I was apparently being recorded, which I was not aware of, and have used that to imply that I say Joseph Smith didn't have the revelations he did. The words don't say that. They said that it's false in some ways. And I've talked to those people. I've told them that's not what I mean. I've said this in public many times, and it still is repeated over and over again. And I'm very resentful. I think it's malicious. And I truly wish they would stop doing it because they are making those words say things that I didn't mean then and don't mean now, but they refuse to be corrected.
All right. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Drs. Richard and Claudia Bushman. Our next conversation with them will be our last, and so you'll definitely want to sign up to our free newsletter at gospeltangents.com/newsletter, and I'll send you a secret link to the final part of our conversation. We're going to talk about their involvement with LDS Arts.
In 2017, we started a Center for Latter-day Arts in New York, and the aim was to educate ourselves better about Latter-day Saint arts, to recognize artists and give them credit, and to let the world get a better idea of just what Latter-day Saint artists are doing.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents for just $5 a month. Patreon is spelled patreon.com/gospeltangents. If you'd like to watch the entire video, you can subscribe at YouTube, Patreon, or on my website at gospeltangents.com and click the yellow subscribe button for just $8 a month. PDF transcripts are just $10 a month, and you can get those on patreon.com/gospeltangents or on my website. I'll send those to you as soon as I've finished completing it. If you'd like to get a paperback and PDF, just subscribe for $20 a month at either Patreon or on my website. Individual paperbacks are available at Amazon.com. Just do a search for Gospel Tangents Interview, and you can find all of our past interviews there. Show your Gospel Tangents pride by purchasing a t-shirt on our website at gospeltangents.com/shop. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. You can get our latest updates by friending me at Facebook, or you can also follow our page at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Become an insider and you can see the newest videos. Follow us on Twitter at Gospel Tangents. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some of our great videos. Thanks again.